for the most part, with Bites in second place, but mile 20 here in Culver City.
Time, 1:49.
And you can hear the spotter calling out the 20-mile mark and the time, and it appears that Bites and Christensen are making up a little bit of ground here, slowly but ever so surely. As we get some perspective as to where they are right now, let's go back and take a peek at the map. Again, the start shortly after 8 o'clock this morning, Santa Monica City College, then down San Vicente, alongside the Pacific Ocean, where it was nice and cloudy and relatively cool. That's where they are right now. They're going to begin to straighten out on Rodeo Road. That's Jefferson Boulevard, and that's where they are right now. We showed you that shot earlier, the working oil wells, which will be off Joni's right shoulder, her last mile, 5:33, and there she is all by herself.
A fitting picture of that relentless oil well, machine-like, of obviously no expression, kind of like Joni, who runs machine-like. I remember when I was 17 and came to my first meet in California, I rode the bus in from the airport. It was killing me. I didn't know what those things were, and I was too scared to ask anybody, but they were all over town.
Joni has dropped off from a 2:23 overall marathon pace down to about a 2:25, but that's pretty understandable because she's getting inland, the sun is coming out, there's not that sea breeze, and the sheer boredom of the course. I mean, the sheer emotional strain of leading like this, Marty, must be incredible.
Industrial area right there, 1:40, a minute and 40 seconds is her lead. So Bites and Christensen have been pairing that lead, but really ever so slightly, as the crowd will begin to thicken, I'm sure, as they approach Rodeo Road. And for those of you who don't live in this area, Rodeo Road is not even the most distant of relatives to Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. But there is Greta Bites, and behind her, Christensen, about a minute and 40 seconds back.
Greta is making a drive now. She's starting to lose Christensen, and it's not much, but between the last two reports we got, she has made up 2 seconds on Joan Benoit, who has been running from 5 to 15 miles at 2:20 pace. So we're seeing one of the great marathons of all time, because a time such as she's on schedule for was not predicted in the heat that they expected in Los Angeles. But Greta is not out of it yet, is she?
No, she is not. I mean, she is really digging in now, Marty. She was looking straight down and concentrating very hard. She wasn't losing any form. You can see that Joan Benoit is still looking out ahead of her. When we get back to that, we'll see that. But it looks like Ingrid is struggling here, and she's falling off. She's losing contact, and that's so valuable in a marathon.
You see Ingrid back there, and she seems to be squinting very hard, and I would think it was pain, but we just saw the personal profile of her, and she had those big glasses on, so maybe she's just squinting to see better. Joni Benoit, though, looks very good, and Greta trying to make that move. She's still got time. If it is a case as it was in the New York Marathon this year, where Rod Dixon caught Jeff Smith from even farther behind at the same point in the race. Jeff Smith looked very good up until 2 miles, and then very quickly deteriorated, but Joni Benoit does not show any signs right now.
Joan Benoit, and it's great to obviously not only run in an Olympic marathon, but to run it in your own country and to be out in front and to know that everybody basically along that route there has obviously been either watching on television or hearing the reports of what's happening. And I suppose for the rest of the way, all the way down to the Coliseum, it'll be something unlike anything she's ever experienced in her life, with the cheers just ringing in her ears.
Well, of course, Al, in Boston, where there were a couple of million people screaming Joni, 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 where she knew everybody in her hometown, must have been incredible also. But here, everybody's been following Joan since that very courageous win in the Olympic trials in Olympia. It's amazing how the interest since that one race has picked up in women's marathon running. And these people have become quite educated into what women's marathon is about.
There's also a big difference, too, in the Boston Marathon, even though she leads all women. And there is Julie Brown, who is well back. She started to drop back just past the halfway mark of the marathon, so she is out of contention. I was going to say that one of the big differences too, Catherine, is that when Joni runs in Boston, she is not in first place. There are men out in front of her, and even though the crowd is spurring her on, she is still really sort of back in the pack, and yet here she is out in front by herself. She is really the queen of the marathon.
And that's right, Al. You can't underestimate either the difficulty of leading a race like this. Not only does she have to take responsibility for the crowd and the press truck around her, but the strategy, the goal planning, and this sheer sheer emotional drain. It's much easier to run with other people around you, be it other women or men or whatever, but to go out and make this commitment as early as Joan did and to hang on to it for a long time is the test of a true athlete and great courage. And I think, again, this should lay to rest many people who criticized Joan's Boston Marathon world record performance, said she was paced by men. That really isn't true. Joni is perfectly capable of doing this all by herself and hanging in there really strongly.
Greta Weitz in second place, about 5 miles to go. This race will end at the Coliseum. They'll enter the tunnel, which is about a quarter of a lap from the finish line. Again, from a helicopter, an establishing shot. Benoit at the bottom of the screen, and we'll go all the way back to where Weitz is, and you'll see her in just a moment. But they'll go into the Coliseum. No doubt the crowd there with an enormous response, obviously. When she emerges from the tunnel, she'll go around the track once. I say she, meaning Benoit. We don't know. I mean, the way it looks right now, it is still Joni who looks like she will do it as the marathon approaches its climax. We're just getting word, by the way, Julie Brown is in 20th place at the moment, but Benoit out in front and looking very good.
We've got what it takes. We've got what it takes to make it easy. We've got what it takes to make it good. There's nothing you can't do when you know your true value. We've got what it takes, true value.
The more you have to do, the more you really need True Value hardware stores and home centers.
We've got what it takes, true value.
Making the Olympics represents the top, and that's where I want to be.
Traditionally, America's cyclists have had to train without the advantage of proper facilities. So 7-Eleven built a track in Colorado. And they also built the first Olympic-class velodrome in America.
We've come this far. I think we can take it.
The 1984 Olympic Velodrome in Los Angeles. 7-Eleven. The dream begins with freedom.
I'd like the most popular home video game system ever.
Ah, the system you want is the Atari 2600.
That's so fast. I want a system that can play hundreds of games.
Oh, then what you want is the Atari 2600.
But I'd like the system that can also play educational games for my children.
Then what you want is the Atari 2600.
Fine, but I want a real low price.
Oh, the Atari 2600 is priced incredibly low.
That's what I want.
The Atari 2600.
Now with its new exciting games at a new low price.
At AT&T, we know you never think about our torture tests.
Yeah, but, oh, it's just a phone.
Or about our extraordinary quality control.
I hear you fine, Mom. Australia's only halfway around the world.
Or even about how reliably we design things.
It still works. Who ever heard of a computer that works without air conditioning?
You can take everything we do for granted. Because at AT&T, we leave nothing to chance.
It's not a total loss. The phone still works.
AT&T, we're reaching out in new directions.
They come to her as strangers. Some are young. Some are starting over. And through the magic that she alone possesses, somehow she brings them together. And out of strangers, she makes lovers.
The Love Boat. She's with you.
We're with you on ABC. With you.
It has been this ladies' show all the way. Al Michaels, Marty LaQuarrie, Catherine Switzer, Bill Rogers reporting on the first ever Olympic Women's Marathon, which started shortly after 8 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. Joan Benoit, basically that same expression in mile 22 right now, a lead of a little bit more than a minute and a half. At last count, 1 minute and 34 seconds precisely for Benoit.
That's right. In the last mile, Greta Weitz made up 4 seconds on Joan Benoit, and Greta is now in full flight. She looks as she has in her past New York marathons where she is in full flight. I would say this, that they will both be on the track for that last 400 meters together. It's going to be that close.
She just passed La Brea Avenue down Rodeo Drive, which will turn into Exposition Boulevard shortly. Greta Weitz in second place. That was a pack of 6 not long ago, and then they started to splinter. And now it is Weitz alone in second place, and you can see her countrywoman Christensen. And a lot of folks thought that Christensen was really primed for this, with not only beat Weitz, but would also take the gold medal, but she is dropping back as the race belongs at this moment to Joan Benoit.
Well, Al, I was one of those who thought that Ingrid had a real dark horse chance because of that 5,000-meter World Championships, that world record that she set, and a very good 3,000 that she set. But I think she's been overtraining and over-racing. Joan has been just staying up in Maine, where, by the way, it's been very hot. It's been 90 degrees and 88% humidity up in Maine, training up there on home turf and very, very hard. Her coach says she's been doing a lot of strength training just to get ready for this race. He said that she was going to have to take it out hard to win it. And the Norwegian coach said something interesting to me, too. He said, if she's going to win it, she's going to have to take it out hard. But if she's going to take it out as hard as everyone says she is, well, God bless her. Well, she's just done that.
Very similar to what took place at that Olympic marathon trial in Olympia, Washington in May to determine the 3 runners from the United States. Benoit went out early there, and the only question that day was 17 days after the knee surgery, would she be able to maintain it? And as she crossed the finish line, that elation written all over her face right now. There she is, cooling herself off in the 22nd mile, a little bit more than 4 miles to go. Of course, ending at the Coliseum. And she will be, or the winner will be crossing the very same finish line that Carl Lewis crossed about 18 hours ago to win his first gold.
No question that she's one of the great athletes of all time. What she did in the Olympic trials, not only the surgery, but the amount of training that she missed, then to come out, run the race. Many people said the Americans would be at a disadvantage having their trial race 11 weeks before the final, that all of our runners would run, much as Julie Brown has obviously had the problem coming back from that hard race. And here she is now leading, and it will probably, if she holds up even reasonably well over these last 4 miles, in retrospect, it's going to be one of the great marathon performances of all time because of the time they're going to run, because of the tremendous rising to the occasion that she did, and the fact that she took it after only 3 miles in the race and never once looked back.
From a chopper, the establishing shot. We started on Greta Weitz, and that's a shot better than any other. Gives you an indication of just how far ahead. And there you can see that little dot right there behind the lead vehicles is Joan Benoit. Right there, and you can see the crowd that, as I say, outside of that little stretch, which was not open to the public along the Marina Freeway, she has had the cheers ringing in her ears all the way.
Whoever wins this race, of course, Al, is going to be immortalized. And I think forever in history, we're going to remember the first woman's winner of this race. And it's interesting to note that Joni here is running along in a clip that would have beat the famous Emil Zatopek. Isn't that amazing just to think of that?
But there are so many incredible stories, and not to beat that knee surgery thing to death, but here's a lady who has to make a decision, number one, as to whether or not she's going to have that surgery in late April. I mean, that's the big decision, and they pretty much tell her, look, if you don't have it, you can't run anyway, and she has to have it. And so she has to think on that day, hey, my chances are gone, or they may be gone. And here she is just a couple of miles now from the finish line, precisely 3 miles and about 3 1/4 miles to go to the finish line at the Coliseum.
And this is a final bid for a lot of women in this race. Al, Joni might have another shot for 88, but for Greta, I think this is the end of the road for the Olympics. I think she's ready to start a family and slow down. She's been running all her life at a world-class level.
Maybe the end of the road for Greta Weitz, as you say, but the end of the road is laden with gold, the way it looks right now, for Joan Benoit, the leader in the Olympic women's marathon. We'll be right back.